Hey everybody, Joe here, and I'm going to do another painting for you. Here's the paper that I use. It's Fabriano 140 pound, and I get a pretty nice block of it. Let me take off a piece here, and here's the paper here you can see. Got a pretty nice card effect to it. I like the body of it. I don't like a real super thin paper. I use very small clips because the way I mat mine, I don't want it to, I go edge to edge. I know some people tape the edges, so I just clip the edges you don't have to have the clip going that far in the edge. Okay, so skies, people struggle with these a lot. I did too. I mean, I'm not saying I'm like an expert or anything, but the way that I do it is I put on a good amount of water. And by the way, you can do this flat too if you're worried about it running down. I'm doing it vertical so that you can see what I'm doing here. And I don't mind if it runs down. To me, that just adds to the overall excitement of the water. So I put a pretty liberal amount of water on here. You can actually see it dripping down. I put it 2 or 3 times and I just let it cascade down. Look at it running. You can see. Okay. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to dip into some of my raw sienna. And I'm going to start creating like a lubricant almost. I'm going to leave light in areas maybe where I want light coming through. Maybe like in here. I don't know what these little hairs are popping out. Probably from my cat. Okay. A little bit more of the raw sienna, blend it in. I like to do it darker in the corners. Something I learned, I think, probably watching like Bob Ross or something. Get these corners in so that when it draws you into the picture so you're not looking so much at the edges. You got to do this pretty rapidly within a couple of minutes period of time before it dries. Okay, so put this down like this. I'm going to probably have some ground down here. Okay, now we're going to wash the brush because I'm going to use blue and I don't want a green sky. So we're going to take some ultramarine blue and just a little bit of Payne's gray because the blue sometimes is just a little too stark. So now we're going to paint sort of around where we think clouds might be. And you can see this as I'm bringing it in. Again, concentrating in the corners so that the corners are good and dark to draw you into the picture. Okay. Now the blue is still a little stark, but we're gonna resolve that problem, or I'm gonna resolve it a little bit. You got a nice sky coming in here, so you add a little bit more of the Payne's gray coming right in on top of it, and put a little bit more in there. If you have to add a little bit more water to your brush, you can do that. And if it runs down a little bit, it's okay. If that's the effect that you want to go for. Get some nice dark. Sometimes you don't want it to drip too much, just tap over it, dry your brush on your towel. A little more at the top here. While it's still wet, come back in and do a little bit more of that. A little bit more of the dark. You're going to get a dramatic sky. Smaller clouds at the bottom as usual. Okay, a little bit more dark. A little bit more darker clouds. This will all dry back. No worries. Put a little bit more in there. Some at the top just to bring you down. And we've got a pretty interesting looking sky there. Now if you want to stop it, you don't want it to really run anymore. Get out your hair dryer. Do a quick dry. Little hairs in there. I usually don't worry about them, but sometimes they bug me. Okay. Next we're going to do a little bit of foreground stuff here. So what do we want to do? We want to maybe do, tell you what, my favorite thing, I'll tell you, is I like doing mountains. and do some little mountains in the background. Let's start laying them in here. It's a little bit darker than I would really want, but I'll show you how to fix that problem. Just add a little more water to your brush and come back in, and you can lighten these up a little bit on the lighter side where you think the light might be hitting to give you a little light on top of those mountains, a little variation. Come in with a little bit more dark. Just lay it in there. It'll give a little bit of texture to the whole thing. Just a little dark on where the dark side might be. You can even take a little tissue if you want to fold it. Make a little highlight where you think there might be a little bit of snow hitting down. And you got a little highlight in the mountain. That's it. That's dang easy. So, next thing we're going to do is I'm going to reapply some water down here, or plain water, because I'm going to come back and I'm going to put some water in down here. So, first thing we're going to do though is we're going to take some raw sienna and some burnt umber. I use a little Van Dyke brown sometimes. We're going to create just a little base of this mountain here. Tell you what. Let's get a little crazy here. Let's make up a little bit of a darker color, and let's just bring in another hill over here. A little bit of a hill. Add a little bit of blue to that, just to some variation there. Just a little hilly. Tell you what, we'll put a little bit on this side too. A little bit of a hill on this side. These should be darker because they're closer, and the mountains in the back should look further away. And a little bit more of that there. Some of this stuff I don't want to be too dark because I'm going to have trees on the side and so forth. And I'm going a little heavier with this too, so it shows a little better on the camera. Oh, let's drop in some water. We're going to do that real super easily here. It's a little too light. We're going to make up a nice watercolor, and we're just going to sort of dry brush it in and just like that. A little bit more of the blue, and just that's eventually going to be water. And that's your water on the bottom. You can even add, you want to add a little bit of yellow to it and get a little greenish, a little bit of the colors from the sky up on top there. Get a little color in there. Don't worry about pushing the paint around. It's wet. You can look at it. I can push this paint around all day long I want. I can wash it off if I wanted to. So I just showed you that for you guys. So we're going to come back in and do a little bit, do it over again. A little bit of that color from up here, and boom, there's our water. And it almost looks like we got a beach thing going on back here, which is sort of the fun of sometimes how things turn out unplanned. Well, let's say you look at this and you go, well, gee, I don't like this cloud over here, how this looks. This kiss came out too dark. And that is what I'm thinking, in case you were wondering. So what we're going to do is, and I was going to do this anyways, but we're going to start doing some foreground after I stretch out my paper a little bit. Just to stretch it out a little bit. Nice little hair here from the cat. Thank you. Okay. And I don't like the cat hair there. You can use your fingers in here. I don't care. So Sometimes you use your fingers, you give it a little texture. Be afraid to touch your painting. Okay. Let's just do a simple little foreground type thing in here. I like brown. I like brown for my foreground. You can make it a green foreground if you want to. I just happen to like the blue-brown sort of combination. Let's make sort of a terrain here. A little more Van Dyke brown on top. Look at that. Just bashing the brush on there actually looks like something. I'm going to come back to that. A little bit of dry, a little bit of drying here. Now watch this. I'm going to take again the brown and the blue combo. Ultramarine and burnt umber, Van Dyke brown, your preference. And we're going to start right here. Boom. There's the makings of your tree. Make the base bigger at the bottom because tree bases are bigger at the bottom. Straight up to the top. Boom. Flatten that brush and zip, zip. Put some branches in there. These will be good for later. Put them at the bottom. Some branches coming off of that. And look at that. We've got a tree there. Tree looks a little lonely. So we go, boom. We put in a little crooked guy over here. He's trying to get in on the picture. He's photobombing. He's painting photobombing. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. And look at that. Again, with a few little branches coming up. And suddenly we've got two trees going on over here. Now we can come back over here. I want to put a tree over here. Let's put this guy in on a really nice angle here. He's coming down, trying to get in the picture. Big tree again with the brown again. Little trick I like to do. I know my light's coming in over here. I'll take my credit card and I'll put in a little to give it a texture off the paper of the light hitting. Give a little texture to the trees. Okay, let's go back over here. Get some branches coming off of this guy. Okay. Now we're going to come back into this foreground. A little more brown. Maybe the Van Dyke, maybe the burnt sienna. Just, no, I'm sorry, the burnt umber. I am going to take a little burnt sienna though, to get a little more warmth out of this foreground. You know, you can use red for that too. By the way, you can take light red. I'm going to do some of that now on my brush. You could actually get in some more reddish tones. I've been told I should get more warmth in my foreground. I kind of tend to lean toward making mine dark, but I do put a little Payne's gray in there just to give a little shadow. Some people like to put shadows in. I mean, you can make a shadow coming off your tree if you want to. Blue and brown, Payne's gray sometimes is too dark. You know, you can have a little shadow coming in there. Again, my favorite thing, I like making some rocks. There's rocks everywhere you go. When you're walking around, I've never seen an area where there's no rocks. Boom. We're going to put in some scratches. Give it that realism. Boom, boom, boom. Look at that. And now we got some life in this picture. Got some real life in it. Now the next thing we're going to do is, you do one of two things. You can start bashing in your leaves, or you can take and you can make some finer branches before you do that. It's up to you, really, if you want them to stand out or blend in a little bit more. But you can start doing that now. Yeah. Zip. Zip. Try to vary your brush stroke a little bit so they actually look like bent little branches. Anything like that. Try to make it look quasi-realistic. Sometimes there's not enough paint and water on there. You get that dry effect. It's not the end of the world either. I like to attach where I had some branches coming off already, just for the realism of it. Let's get a few more coming off of the other stalks. You can call it stalks, I guess, right? My hands get a little shaky, but I like them to be attached. And some of this is going to be covered up by leaves anyways. And that's what you got to decide next. What color leaves am I going to do? Is this going to be a fall scene, maybe a green summer, or hey, you can just leave it like that. Let's get some little grassy pieces down at the bottom here. You can very easily overdo this. You can do as many little things as you want here. It's up to you. So there is your tree branches. You can leave them like that if you wanted to. I like leaves myself. Now it looks a little bit more like sun's going down. These leaves might be a little bit darker. We can do, I like to start off with a yellow color and start bashing that in. I'm going to do these a little darker for the simple reason it's the scene itself is a little darker. We're just going to bash in. I've got whatever was on my brush before, and I've got some raw sienna. And I'm putting a lot on there. It's what they would call neat paint. It's probably a little bit dark, but that's okay. Get a lot of neat paint on there. You'll get some nice effects on there. Come off the bottom with it so you can really see it. The eye sees a little bit of that color, and then the eye says that's the color that it is. Let's get some over here so we get a little arch, a little arching of the trees meeting up together. So I'm going to take a little cad yellow, mix it in on my brush too. We'll get a little yellow in there. Kind of going in reverse because you shouldn't put cad yellow. You can go over the top with, and it'll actually work. It'll actually, because of the transparency of the other paints, it'll look like a highlight in there. What I want to do real quick is just dry it because I don't want it to blend too much with the other paint. And a little more of that cad yellow in there. Get it on the trunk, and then it'll look three-dimensional. And just kind of bash it in there. Kind of neglect it up here a little bit. And you can even come back to the raw sienna if you want a little bit too, and just get a little bit of that in there. Come down a little further, and the leaves will come down a little bit. And let's dry it a little. don't want to take up too much time with drying. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to put in the birds, a couple of birds, and I do my birds with artist pens. I don't use the brush because at the end I'll slip and then I'll be real upset. Let's do a little flock of birds. They just maybe flew off the tree. And we'll sign it. And there you have it. Still drying in a couple places, but I think you can see got a nice little beach going on back here where I left some white. And then on the bottom you can see where my little stones are, some little grassy things. And you can see where the neat paint is standing out and creating a really nice leaf effect. That's it. Thanks, as always, for watching my videos. I really appreciate it.